Let's do some different types of listening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's tune into the business panel and hear how they think about partnering with the community, what they're looking for, and what they need from us. Together, let's explore the opportunities that we can uncover or expand on by having an open and honest conversations with Ms. Maria Spina from PSCG Foundation, Richard Zendrowski from Investors Bank, and Bill Caggiano, who's representing RBC. Please join us. Today. So I want to just kind of start off getting to know each and every one of you a little bit. Can you all share with me, if anything, around your organization's community involvement pronouncement, or what's their statement, or what do you think your corporation believes in terms of community engagement?
I'll start. The eyes all lifted. Well, good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here and talk about the PhD Foundation and the work that we do.
Yeah, we can get your mic up.
Can you hear me now?
Nope. The mics aren't on.
Hello? Yes. Good morning, everyone. Just want to say first, thank you for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to represent PSCG, the PSCG Foundation. As you may know, or may not know a little bit about PSCG, we are a service provider of electric and gas throughout New Jersey, Long Island, and also have power plants in Connecticut and Maryland, which means in terms of our citizenship, we stretch that far. We're anchor institution here in Newark, having a our corporate headquarters here, which means a lot of our support is in Newark, but we do stretch throughout our service territory as well. Some of our pillars in support that are all interrelated and are around our business imperatives are safety and disaster relief, STEM education, and sustainable neighborhoods. And what does all of that mean, and how does all of that connect? It's really about the future. It's about youth development. It's about what ways can we support our communities for youth that are the future employees of our company. And I would say that's our main focus. When we talk about STEM education, we dive into workforce development, leadership development. What does that mean for our youth? What are those skills that are needed for jobs of the future? How does all of that translate? Well, it starts with from a very young age in ways that we can support out-of-school time programs.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Is this on? Okay. This is my first conference. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Richard.
For Investors Bank, we are involved in a lot of different communities, and basically we follow one simple thing. It's being a good corporate citizen, and we believe that being a good corporate citizen involves extending our core values. So we have character, cooperation, commitment, and community. And we follow those to the letter, basically in everything that we do. We have we have the Investors Foundation, which actually helps organizations throughout New Jersey, New York City, and Long Island that are civic-minded in arts and education to basically extend opportunities to them in any way that we can.
Oh.
That's good. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And I used to be with RBC Capital Markets. And for those of you that are not familiar with them, RBC Capital Markets is the investment banking arm of the Royal Bank of Canada. And you may not know us up there in Canada, and I know maybe Mr. Trump hasn't been nice to Canada this week, but RBC is the premier financial institution in Canada. We also have operations in New York, where I used to work. We got involved with the All-Stars starting about 5 years ago. I got a very nice letter from one of my very good clients and said, "Dear Bill, please come to our dinner for the All-Stars." And I said, "We're there." So we sent the check in, and nobody went to the dinner. Okay? The next year, we got the same letter. "Dear Bill, send us another $10,000 and please go to the dinner." So this year, I got my tuxedo on, and I went to the dinner. And I started to sort of drink the Kool-Aid relating to the All-Stars. We had some wonderful kids there, and there was a young lady at our table from Montclair, which is where I grew up in. And she was talking about the challenges in her life, and I compared them to the challenges that my kids had. And they were different, okay? Third year, I get the same letter. Finally, I said, "Oh, 3 times the charm, I'll get the money, no problem." Finally, the head of our US operations said, "Hey, Bill, we have 1,000 people in Jersey City. Can't we do more than write a check?" So I said, "Great, this is looking great for me. I'm gonna look like a star." And so we went to the dinner again, but we also made a commitment to Gloria and the rest of the All-Stars. We would help with mock job interviews. We would do prep sessions with our young people here. We would hire 3 summer interns starting last year. They had to be over 18, which was a problem, but we figured it out. It took a while. The most important thing I probably did was I sort of got it out of our profit center and moved it over to what we call RBC Foundation, and got my good friend John Thurlow involved, who is our most senior person in the United States. He runs our branch operations. He's the man, and he's been incredibly supportive of the All-Stars. So what started out as please buy a table, over a 5-year period, we've been able to hire interns, mock job interviews, prep sessions. We helped them with resumes. And so what we did was, don't just write a check. If you want to be successful, because people that write checks leave. They come and they go, they come and they go. But you've really got to get a broad buy-in from the organization. And it took time. You know, I went to many sessions with Gloria and some of her colleagues, and I could finally go back and say, the All-Stars is the kind of organization that, similar to Investors Bank, reflects our values, okay? What's important, doing the right thing. I didn't realize this till recently, but they did a blue ribbon panel up in Canada. And they found out that after-school development programs are mission critical for our young people in terms of employment and developing their opportunities. So here I find an organization in Jersey City that does after-school development. I'm able to get 20 or 30 or 40 people from RBC involved. We've written a few more checks, Gloria, I think that's fair. We've written a few more checks, and when I retired, my wife begged Gloria if I could volunteer, and Gloria was so kind to say, "Okay, we'll work with them." So it's been a wonderful experience, but you just can't get someone to write a check. You've got to get people to show up. And my only other comment is you just can't have John Thurlow at the top. You have to get Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Sally, and Jane, and everybody else underneath them to do an interview, to agree to be a supervisor, agree to help somebody with their resume. You just can't have one guy or gal at the top. It won't work.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. And now these mics, I have a mind of their own. That's great.
All right, so you've told us also, Bill, how we've gained from working with you and partnering with you, but tell us a little bit overall, what has your organization gained from their partnerships? What are some things that you are most proud of? Like, we did that.
I guess we'll start again. Can you hear me?
Oh.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So one thing we've gained, and what I didn't add, which I will add now to both Bill and Rich's point, is that we're 13,000 strong employees, and employees that live in the communities we serve. And that's one thing that we've gained, the culture change from our employees into the communities as well. Our employees are vocal in many ways, through employee resource groups, through councils, through just speaking up in ways that they can participate and engage in the community. And the fact that we embrace that as a company in supporting and not just writing checks, not just attending dinners, not just looking great on the outside as a corporate citizen, but really vesting in through our employees, because they are the catalyst in the community. They're the ones that can really make a change and can be the mentor for these students. We've also engaged our HR partners, business leads, other different areas of our business to get involved. Recently, we had All-Stars come out and do a panel on developing their resume and what's your talking point when you want to sell yourself out for a job. And our employees embraced that so well. It wasn't just employees here in Newark. We had employees travel all the way from Salem down South Jersey to come and help out. So one thing we've gained is that culture change internally, that engagement from a partnership like All Stars.
All right, let's see. From a community perspective, I mean, Investors Bank, we get involved in any way that we can. We don't have just one area within the bank where they're actively seeking to go out and collect people or looking at organizations and say, you know, oh, let's pick you this time and write a check or something like that. It's actually everybody in the bank, and it starts at onboarding. When we're onboarded at the bank, the last day, it's a 3-day onboarding, so it's a little lengthy, but the last day you actually go to the food bank in New Jersey and you volunteer for the first half of the day. And that is your introduction to this is what we're about. And that's what's important. So when I joined this bank, and it was just 2 years ago, I was amazed. I was like, really, this is something completely different altogether than I've ever experienced. And I've worked for global banks throughout the years, and I've never experienced community interaction like this and involvement. So it starts with that. So we have different organizations that we work with, All Stars Project being one of them. But we look for opportunities to get involved. And it could be as simple as participating in a walk, participating in a parade, participating in the food bank and giving back. We actually carve time out for our employees to be able to go out and do these things during work days if they need to. But we also, for like All Stars, for example, we have interns that come in and they actually work with everybody every day. They show up like an employee. They are treated like an employee. But the biggest thing that we get out of it is they make a difference. They make an impact. Just a personal example an experience that I had last year. It's my first experience working with the interns. I had one of them working on my team. And I think, and I was just sharing this story earlier, but I think high school kids, what can they do? You know, what are they going to add in terms of value? They're kids, right? But they came in and they were so full of life and they were ambitious and they were hungry and they wanted to learn. And they came in even with a little bit of experience, right? Real life experience. And that's what I think matters most is what you learn in life, what you learn by interaction with people, you bring to the table. So I had this one gentleman working with me, and he made a significant impact to my team. He took on a project that I couldn't get anybody else on my team to do, and he did it. And he finished it before he left. And it was amazing. And I couldn't believe that a high school kid, who I thought could not add value, showed me, basically. And that's what we get out of it, is that we look at these as opportunities to open hearts and minds, to help where we can, to make a difference in someone's lives. That's about it.
All right, we'll change it up a little bit. So this question is for anybody on the panel. What are some like out-of-the-box partnerships that you've had? Like something that's like, wow, we did that. That was different. It's okay if you don't have any either.
Well, RBC's involvement in New Jersey, this is really one of the first or second opportunities we've had. However, you know, in Canada, you know, we give away like $100 million to, you know, over 150 plus organizations. So we have a big country up there. We have a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of great organizations that we try to support. They've come up with a 10-year plan to give away $500 million to organizations that the bank believes will make a difference in the lives of our citizens, whether they be in Canada primarily or here in the United States. Just as a side note, I mean, I sort of hope that the RBC capital markets relationship will sort of grow to what these two individuals and their organizations have done, because they've been, you know, interns and money and sponsorship and people showing up. So we sort of aspire to do what these two companies have done to my left here.
So I'm not saying that I'm just partial to All Stars, but I will speak about a couple of different partnerships. But one important partnership or piece of our partnership with All Stars that was developed a few years ago was the support of cops and kids. And that program really critical to addressing social issues that kids and both police face in their community, and really removing the barriers and stigmas around what is being seen by children when police come into their community and vice versa. So that was really an amazing thing that I think PSEG really stood behind in supporting and creating safe spaces for communities overall. Another wonderful partnership, not necessarily out of school time, during school time, is a partnership with Students to Science. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization, based in East Hanover, but just recently opened a science technology center here in Newark, and embraced in the curriculum through the Board of Education, and offering practical hands-on STEM education to students. So many different opportunities. We've also, through our employee engagement team, supported a kaboom build at Graced West Manor, just a wonderful way for our employees to come out into the community and support building a playground for children. So many different opportunities, the list goes on, but we have All Stars really near and dear to us.
Thank you. You guys are like great all-star spokesmen and women. Can you tell us a little bit, again, this is for anyone to answer, some things that nonprofit organizations may not understand, you know, about how corporations see and seek partnerships? Tell us the secret.
This is becoming a little bit of too much of a trend of me starting.
No, I'll do it next. I don't mind.
Well, I will say these are not my words, but the words of my predecessor, which is, be true to yourself. And I think a lot of nonprofits struggle financially with obtaining funding, and therefore may try to redesign a program in the interest of obtaining funding, or may try to twist themselves in a pretzel for ways that is really about ultimately obtaining the funding and may lose sight of their own mission. So one thing we find is stay true to who you are as an organization and the mission that you've set forth. The troubled times will pass, and corporations, other private foundations will see the mission and impact that you've put forth in the communities and will support your organization regardless, especially if they are really believing in the work that you do.
Thank you.
I think what I would add is, I think you have to prioritize your ask. And I think you have to have a broad base to call upon. You just can't depend on one angel to give you all your money and provide all the people and you know, provide all the donuts or whatever has to be done. You've got to be thoughtful as to what you ask for. If you can't give money, can you give us 5 volunteers on Saturday? Okay? We have a gymnasium, it's available. We don't have a lot of people that understand poverty in Jersey City, but why don't you use our facilities? We'll work with you on resumes. So you have to decide what your priorities are. And I always kind of look at it, and you know, maybe because I was a banker for a long time, you know, what is the value proposition for our company? What are we getting? I know that sounds a little tough, but what are we getting and what are we giving? And what is that value? Are we getting our money's worth? Okay? Are we putting dollars in the right area? Okay? Yes, we support a lot of different organizations, and some of them are better than others, and you know, you got to look at the value proposition. That sounds hard, but there are limited resources out there. Limited resources in terms of a senior executive's time that he can spend or she can spend. How much money? We can only take 20 interns, or we can only take 3 interns. There's limitations. So you have to do what they do here, because I peek under the covers occasionally, and they've got a broad base, and they're thoughtful about when and who and what they ask for. So you have, I think if you're trying to develop your own programs, I think that's something you should think about.
Mike, oh, there we go. So from my perspective, one piece of advice, I guess, would be your networks, right? A lot of times nonprofits will target the senior executive, and it's a great place to start.
Absolutely.
But it should not be your end game. Network the lower levels as much as you can, because there is a lot more churn down below. And once those people start migrating to different companies, which people eventually do, they take their connections with them, their organizations, their nonprofits, their charities. They take all that with them. They want to start anew. That way they get their new corporations involved, and it just starts spreading out from there. So it's, if you're looking for buy-in, or you're looking for interaction and actually a place for belonging, network in all different levels. Don't just stay at the top.
Yeah, please.
Want to add one thing. I had a call with a grantee yesterday. It's been we've had a long time partnership with, and I had an interesting question to me, and that was, well, I heard PSC&G had a great year last year, so can we actually ask for more money? And I thought, you know what, that's an interesting question. I don't think you realize how our foundation is funded. And my advice would be, learn about the source of funding. Learn about when you're seeking funding, how does that company fund its foundation? How does it invest in that community? What type of social investments? What are the interests? Because again, that kind of rang a bell to me, and I thought, I don't think you realize we do not take ratepayer fundings. This is really about investments, and we do have guidelines that we have to follow. And I would say that's another thing. Recognize that there are guidelines, there is a strategy, there is a limited budget. So even if it appears that a company is thriving well financially, that may not be that we can provide funding for all sources.
You actually just answered my next question, so I appreciate that, which was about what do nonprofits need to understand about the cultural, the culture about corporate, organizations and funding. So you touched on that, and I think that's important. Does anybody want to add anything on that side in terms of understanding the cultural environment around funding?
Listen, at our shop, I tried to get it off my expense account to the foundation, and each year, the management of the bank decides, we will invest $1, $1 million, 100, whatever the right number is, and then people have to sort of compete. We only have so much money. I mean, we have shareholders, we have other issues that you deal with, so we want to make a commitment to the community, and that hopefully will grow our business. But whether it's 1 million or 100 million, whatever the number is, that has to feed a lot of mouths. So once it gets to a foundation, then people go forth and say, hey, we should do the All-Stars again. How much is it going to take? X amount of dollars. So you have a budget. It's no different from running your household. Everybody has a budget, or hopefully does, have a budget for charity and housing and the cell phone bill. So you have all these things that you have to fund. So, and to your point, just because they make more money, that doesn't mean they're going to throw another $10 million into the pot. They can't.
Thank you. So I have one last question. And this is for our grassroots, our grassroots nonprofit organizations out here. What are some things that smaller grassroots organizations can do to get on the radar of corporations and foundations, if anything at all?
That's a good question.
Chivalry's not dead.
I think collaboration. Sort of put yourself out there and collaborate with other partners so that private foundations, corporations, corporate foundations can really see the work that you're doing. Whether it may start with something small, it may start with a community center, it may start with networking, but collaboration is key because I think that shows strength in many ways that will provide corporations or again, private foundations the means to seek out that organization.
Just from a banking perspective, Investors Bank is a small community bank. So typically, our employees are your neighbors, right? They're people that live right next to you or in your neighborhood, or there's a branch in your neighborhood. So I would say start with local community type organizations that are maybe connected to something much bigger, right? So walk into a bank and say, hey, I have this organization. Is there anyone in your company that I can talk to about it? Most likely, they'll send you right to that person. I know from my organization, it's very easy. We're very approachable. Come up to us, ask us. Most likely, we'll try to get involved if we can, in any way that we can, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think as the companies get bigger, it becomes a little bit more challenging to work the ins and outs of the company. And it is sometimes hard to get recognized. I know for our organization, there's actually a website and there's an application, and if you want to ask for money, fill in the application, and it will be, reviewed at a certain time. For things in New Jersey, for us, RBC, New York, New Jersey, for us to get excited about a project in Atlantic City, that's going to be tough. The All-Stars growing in Jersey City, help us lay the foundation, play a major part in developing, that appealed to us. We're not going to send our employees to Atlantic City at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to work on resumes. It's not going to happen. So try to, localize, come up with something that's close by. You just can't it's also hard to get people to go to Atlantic City at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon to write resumes. It's not going to happen.
Thank you, Bill. All right, so you've heard from our experts. I want to open the floor up. We have a couple of minutes to take any questions or statements. And all the way in the back, but do we have a mic for our guest? Not bad, I can hear you.
What do you look for specifically as far as outcomes for your programs? Is it very specific? Does it depend? Especially if it's an academic program, how do you want, the organization to prove their impact?
That's such a good question. Metrics is always point of contact.
I don't know from my perspective if there's this particular outcome that we're looking for. I think it's an ongoing relationship that we want to foster, and something that we want to grow because we have a vested interest in youth. I don't know if there's something that you actually have to prove to us. I think one thing that's unique about what we do is, take somebody who's my age, and I mean, I may look 25, but there's a gap, right? There's a large gap between me and a high school student. But what we do have is we have the All-Stars project come in, and then we also have college interns, and that's kind of like our gap filler. So we use our gap filler to relate to the high school students to say, academically, they're more in tune with one another, and they can translate sometimes, but it helps us on both sides, both from your level or from that level to speak to more senior level, and you have that buffer in between so that there's easily relatable, if that makes sense.
I would add to that also and say that it isn't necessarily, we're sort of behind the curtain, we fund and then give us a report and show us the numbers or tell us the wonderful story. It's really about that relationship that stems and fosters into something where it's visible even on a site visit, visible attending the organization's events. And I don't mean an event like a dinner, I mean something like the All-Stars where we get to meet the kids and really relate and see, well, this is amazing, there really is impact here. These students speak so well, they're talking so wonderfully about their future trajectory, and that's, I think, more important than reading a report that has numbers in it.
You know what, I'm sorry, I lied. There's one thing, there is one thing that we do measure by, and it is after you're done with the internship, what did you get out of it? And that's what helps us understand if there's anything that we need to change. How do we give you what you need in terms of growth and development and launching you into a career? So that's what we look for.
Thank you. Great question. Ms. Yolanda.
So we had an opportunity in March to collaborate with All Stars Project on Town Hall, Education Equity, and I thought it was phenomenal. As you spoke about the kids being extremely articulate and present, so my question to all of you, with supporting them in terms of preparing for their careers, do you also give them a platform to voice, to have input in what's happening in their immediate communities and outside? How do you also prepare them to speak up and out for things that they have concerns about, aside from getting them prepared for careers and jobs?
Yeah, I think when we do our sessions with the young people and we have them work at our bank, we're trying to give them basic skills that they might use as they look for a job. We're not focused on, hey, you should be a community activist or what have you. We're not experts at that. We understand what it takes to run a corporation. We understand what it takes to be successful, for an individual to be successful. So what we try to do is share some of those skills with our young people. As I said, whether as an intern a development session that we have? Yes, do we care about other things besides, learning how to count to 100 or something like that? Yeah, we do, and we try to explain to them that not only do you need technical skills to be successful, you need a personality. You got to be nice to people. You have to talk to people. You have to be able to negotiate with people. These are all skills that hopefully they'll use in the workplace, they'll use at home, they'll use in their community. I don't know if IM or RBC is an expert on bridging the gap between incomes and poverty, but I think what we're trying to do, is provide one plank in that bridge between this is where the young people are today in Newark and Jersey City. We'd love to get them here. It's going to take a lot of bricks. It's going to take a lot of planks to get from here to there. We're going to give you one or two. What I tell, because during the summer I help kids at AIG and RBC get on board, and I'm supposed to mentor them during the summer, sort of. And I just try to say, if you could come away with one or two, or God forbid, 3 important points or 3 skills, I'm happy. I'm happy. I really am, and I think that's important.
And then building relationships with you.
Translates in those different ways to set them up to be able to speak out and to you about different things that's going on in their lives, which gives them confidence to do that with more people.
There's a lot of, as I said, I'm here most Thursdays, and there's a lot of tough love. There's a lot of, we were with one of our other colleagues, Rachel, and we had a really tough conversation with a young person. It's like, oh my God. So we want them to be successful, and we want them to cross that bridge, but they've got to do it. We want to give them the tools, but they got to do it. And what we're trying to do at RBC is give them one more tool, one more idea, one more person that says, hey, good job, great job. Hey, also we're going to say, I talked to one of the supervisors and said, are you having a problem with so-and-so? And they said, well, we want to talk to them about something. I said, do you want me to do it? No. We're going to tell him directly, just as though he was an employee of the firm. So there's a lot of tough love, and we're trying to get people partway across the bridge, all the way across the bridge. That's, we're not trying to save the world. We're one step at a time.
Thanks, Bill.
I think that was an excellent question, and I agree with everything that Bill said, in that it's not one thing that we can do alone, but that we all have to do together. One thing that in my involvement with partnerships and relationships with organizations is making sure they know some of the other things we support. Because there could be opportunities for youth to engage in maybe a summer program at a university that we support, or we just recently in 2017 supported a program called the Energy Career Program at Essex County College. So there's other opportunities for youth to get involved in different programs that we support, and I think it's really about that cross-functional sharing of information.
Well, thank you so much. Please give it a round of applause for our business panelists.